I would like to once again welcome the neighbors, friends and relatives who are coming here. For those who have been with us since early this morning, or not so early, but it's been a long and heavy day, it is heartwarming that we're still so many at this hour. So here we are at Thalia Street 66, which was the home of my aunt Mariem Reinhold Führer, her husband Herz Baumgarten, and their children Nesanel and Channa Baumgarten. Two people will be speaking here: Debbie Friedman from Israel, a grandniece, and Naama Hochstein also from Israel and also a grandniece. After that, Naama and her family will ask to join us in song, accompanied by Lonnie and his guitar. More later.
We're standing outside the home.
Start again.
No, you've got to be really quite close.
Oh. We're standing outside the home where Mariem Hinde Baumgarten, my grandmother's older sister, once lived with her husband and two children. I chose to speak about her because I carry her name. Mariem is my middle name. Mariem, the eldest of the 6 Reinhold Führer siblings, lived a short and tumultuous life. She was born in Bobowa, Poland on July the 4th, 1905. By the age of 19, she had already moved home multiple times, from her birthplace in Poland to Antwerp, then back to Galicia, then on to several different locations in Poland during World War I, then to Frankfurt, and finally back to Antwerp again. In this relatively short span of years, she lived through a world war, had been separated from her father twice, once when he travelled alone to Antwerp in search of work and a new life for the family, and once when he was conscripted into the Austro-Hungarian army. She had twice watched her mother struggle to survive alone with her young children. She had endured poverty, hunger, and prejudice. At the age of 23, it looked like she would finally get some peace and happiness when she married Herz Baumgarten. 1 year later, she gave birth to their first son, Nesanel, named for the same relative as my father. And 6 years after that, in 1936, they welcomed a daughter named Channa. All in all, Mariem might have enjoyed around 12 years of normal family life with her husband and children. Her parents, siblings, and their spouses and children all lived nearby in this very area where we now stand. On the 20th of May 1940, Belgium surrendered to Germany, and approximately 75,000 Jews who were living here at the time were suddenly thrust into grave danger. The Baumgarten family tried to escape. We have evidence, thanks to Noah Shasha's meticulous research, that they applied for a US visa. The reply from the American consulate, dated May the 26th, 1941, states, and I'm quoting directly, "The evidence in support of your case appears to be sufficient. However, in view of the fact that steamship reservations are now being made for sailings early in the year 1942, some 10 months after the date of this letter, and that visas may not be issued for a period exceeding 4 months, and that visas may not be issued unless it appears reasonably certain that the person to whom such a visa is issued will be able to proceed to the United States within the validity of the visa, it is suggested you take immediate steps towards obtaining a reservation on a specified steamship." Clearly, tickets on ships out of Europe were not easy to come by in those terrible days. Miriam and her young family were effectively trapped. I wonder if they realized that this letter signaled the end. We will never know. Less than 4 months after the date that this letter was received, on September the 15th, 1942, Miriam was deported to Auschwitz and murdered on the day of arrival, aged just 37. Her daughter Anna was deported on the same date. We don't know if they were together, and she died there aged 6. A month later, in October 1942, Laser was deported and also murdered on arrival, aged 37. And 1 month after that, in November 1942, Nesanel was also deported and murdered on arrival. He was just 12 years old. In the space of just a few months, 19 members of one extended family were murdered, alongside thousands of others, simply for being Jewish. It's staggering. My grandmother Rosa, Rachel, the youngest of the siblings, didn't speak much about her family when I was growing up, but she did tell me that I was named after her sister Miriam, which I was proud of. I am also coincidentally named for another Miriam, my paternal grandfather's sister, who was also murdered in the Holocaust, although under different circumstances. I once took a book off my grandmother's shelf and I found a folded piece of paper inside. It was something she must have written as part of a Holocaust group she attended at a senior centre. She described her early days after arriving in England, how she had recently given birth to my father, I imagine, and how deeply lonely she felt, knowing that almost her entire family, parents, siblings, nieces and nephews, were dead and could not share this joyous moment with her. While I only ever remember her smiling, and she was always the warmest and most loving of grandmothers, this gave me a glimpse into the darkness she had experienced. I also remember a conversation she had with me and my cousins, Zaviti and Daniela, where she said something like, "Unlike women in your generation, I never had time to think about whether I was happy or fulfilled. I was just incredibly grateful that I survived, that I got married, and that I lived to see children and grandchildren." Her gratitude, acceptance, and capacity to live without anger, I now appreciate as signs of extraordinary strength. Growing up with 4 grandparents who suffered terribly simply for being Jewish had a profound impact on me. My ancestors did not live peaceful lives. They were constantly on the move, trying to escape hatred and prejudice so they could do normal things many people take for granted, like live in peace in one place. And if they were not running, some, like my maternal grandparents and other ancestors of people here, were hiding, also in Belgium, thanks to the bravery of righteous non-Jews who risked everything to save them. The privilege that I and my siblings enjoyed, a stable childhood, attending school daily, living in the same house until adulthood, and being free to practice our religion as we so choose, was never lost on me. From a young age, I was also inspired by stories I heard of pioneers and Holocaust survivors who made it to Israel and gave their all to build a homeland for the Jewish people, so that what happened to our ancestors would never happen again. For me, growing up with this legacy, it seemed obvious that I would one day make my way to Israel. And I am incredibly blessed and grateful to be living a reality that our ancestors could only have dreamed of. The dream of living freely in our land, raising our family there, and contributing each in our own way to making it a fitting home for all Jewish people who choose to come there. It may not be perfect, but it's ours, And that's something we can't say about any other place on earth. Today, we gather to remember 19 members of our family who were murdered. It is amazing to see what has sprouted from just 2 survivors of my grandmother's large family. There are around 50 of us here, and many more in the family who couldn't make it today. We are from different corners of the world, including many from Israel. 4 generations of descendants, and a 5th has already been born from a smattering of survivors. Looking around today, it's clear that not only did our family survive, but that we are, thank God, also thriving. And this gives me a deep sense of peace on this difficult day.
I wanted to say a few words. I want to say as well a few words about Mariem Hinde and to Mariem Hinde. Debbie told us a lot about her, so perhaps I will just say that to me it stood out that she was the oldest sister. By the time she was 5, she was the eldest of 4, and by the time she was 8, she was the eldest of 6. And perhaps I will say that in 1929, she married. She was the first in her family to marry. And then in 1930, her first child was born, Nesanel, as Debbie told us. The first grandchild of Abish and Silka, and I imagine what a joyous moment that was. And then she gave birth to their second child, a daughter, Anna. And during those years, several of her siblings also married, and nieces and nephews were born. Cousins for Mariem Hinde's children, a very sweet and joyous time in life. Babies and toddlers growing up together, cousins. These included, in 1939, Moshe and Tauba's firstborn daughter, baby cousin Estelle, who is my aunt. Moshe and Tauba were my grandparents. Miriam, I want to tell you that we've thought of you over the years. We've spoken about you, about Lizer, Nesanel, and Anna, even without knowing exactly who you were, even when your names weren't clear to us. We worried what happened to you, what you went through. We imagined maybe somehow you had survived and were thinking of us, searching for us, just as we were thinking of you. I knew that Sunny, Nesanel's, had the same namesake as you, was named for one of the children in the family. And now I understand that my mother, Anna, Annette, was probably named in connection to your little daughter who shares her birthday, May 12th. When my nieces and nephews were born, I felt that overwhelming love for them. I began to understand a little more of what my mother told me about the look on Saba Moshe's face, how he would sit in his armchair, thoughtful and sad. She imagines he was thinking about you and your children, his beloved niece and nephew. How sweet he must have been, and how he must have loved to lift you in his arms, how he must have hoped to raise his daughters alongside you. You are gone, but we've held onto your legacy of family connection, the joy between cousins and closeness and warmth between grandparents, uncles, aunts, nieces, and nephews. Through Estelle, who had a taste of it in her first years of life and established it so firmly in our family, and through the strong bonds between the families of Moshe and Rosa. A few weeks ago, I dreamed of a piece of paper with a cut-out part. in the dream, I found the missing piece. It was a flower. A yellow flower. And I glued it into a square, a frame. For a long time, you were a missing part for us. But now, thanks to Nosha Shah's extraordinary work, we know more. Your names, your journeys, something about who you were and what you went through. And something of the storm of this loss can rest. Thank you, Noah. Thank you, Ima and Vivi, Naba, and everyone who helped and is helping with this ceremony of laying stones in your memory. So now, please take page number 7 from your package. And Loni will accompany us. We will sing Shira Partizanim. I spoke yesterday about moving across the ocean with a piece of sky in your hand. So I think this song, Shira Partizanim, is for me somehow also representative of that, in the sense that even in the ghetto, someone was writing a song which kind of spread like fire because it gave people something to hold on to. And Loni will accompany me. Thank you, Loni. Accompany us all. You're all welcome to sing together. We'll sing one stanza in Hebrew and then one stanza in Yiddish.
Hi, I'm Yael, Estelle's daughter, and unfortunately my mother couldn't come. So I was thinking, what would she say? What would she say in one sentence? And I think that the memory that for me is the strongest when we used to talk about it would be that after the war, when Tosha came to their house, she was around 4 or 5 years old, and Tosha came straight from Auschwitz, I think. And he was still in the clothes of the camp. And she heard, of course she was not allowed to hear, but she heard from behind the door that he said there's not a Jewish child left in Europe. And she said to herself, but that's not true, I'm a Jewish child and I'm here. And I think that this thing is the big winning for what was not succeeded, and they meant the Germans or the Nazis are more meant to not have any Jewish child in Europe, but even in Europe, there's still Jewish children, and definitely everywhere else.
So this is the end of our walk of remembrance and the placing of the stumbling stones. In these stones, we not only remember tragedy, but we speak identity. The stones do not say only they died, but they have lived, and that's what we try to say today. And because they lived, we, all of us, are here. To our grandparents, great aunts, cousins, uncles, aunts, we say, we remember you. We carry your names, your picture in our family stories, in our children's middle names, in this gathering. May this day be not only a remembrance, but a vow that we will continue to tell your stories, that history will not bury you in silence. This is what also you, the volunteers of this whole endeavor, have done for us and for them. Thank you all for your presence. May their memory be a blessing. Yehi zichram baruch. Please join us for a final recitation of the Kaddish.
Maybe you are next. Stay there.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בענה תברך חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון וחיי בכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב וימרו אמן. מבורך לעולם ולעולמי עולמיה. ישמח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתעלה ויתעלה שמי בקדושה וברכו. לעילם מכל ברכתה ושירתה, משפחתה ונחמתה, דאמירה ואמרה ואמרו אמן. יהי שלום אברהם שמעיה בחיים טובים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. שלום במרומיו
Shalom Aleichem.